In the summer of 1587, 115 English men, women, and children stepped onto Roanoke Island, a wild strip of land off what is now North Carolina. They came with hope, with dreams of building a new life. Among them was Virginia Dare, the first English child born on American soil. But within 3 years, every single one of them would vanish without a trace. No bodies, no graves. Just a single word carved into a tree, Croatoan, for 438 years. This disappearance has haunted America. But in 2025, scientists finally cracked the code. And what they found isn't just shocking, it's terrifying. The colony's leader, John White, was forced to return to England for supplies just weeks after arrival. He expected to be gone 4 months. But England was at war with Spain, and Queen Elizabeth conscripted every ship for the fight against the Spanish Armada. White was stranded for 3 agonizing years. When he finally returned in August 1590, the silence was suffocating. The fort stood exactly as he'd left it, palisades upright, gates unbroken, but life was gone. Not a single soul, no signs of violence, no blood, no scattered belongings, no freshly dug graves. The only clue was carved into wood, the word Croatoan on the fort's entrance post, and the letters Crow on a nearby tree. White's heart pounded. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, home to a friendly tribe. The agreed-upon code in case of emergency relocation was to carve their destination. There was no cross, no distress symbol. Perhaps they had moved voluntarily, perhaps they were safe. But a violent storm descended as White prepared to sail for Croatoan. His ship's anchor broke, supplies dwindled, crew morale collapsed. With a heavy heart, White turned back for England, never to return. An entire colony, a piece of England transplanted to the New World, had vanished without a single trace. For centuries, Roanoke's fate became a puzzle no historian could solve. Early reports from Jamestown settlers spoke of tribes with members who spoke broken English, who claimed to descend from white ancestors. Some bore grey eyes, lighter hair, and features uncommon among local nations, but nothing was ever verified. Every lead ended in ash. Sinister theories arose. Some believed the colonists had been killed by tribes after diplomatic breakdown. Others blamed starvation, harsh winters, or cannibalism. A few pointed fingers at the Spanish, who were known to eliminate rival settlements. Then came stories of curses, of sacred burial grounds disturbed, of the land itself rejecting the foreign settlers. In 1937, the infamous Dare stone surfaced, rocks inscribed with supposed messages from Eleanor Dare, Virginia's mother. The story captivated the nation. Eventually, scholars labeled most as fakes. Hope gave way to disillusionment. In 2012, a researcher at the British Museum was analysing a 16th century watercolour map titled La Virginia Pass, crafted by John White himself. Using backlighting, they saw it, the faint outline of a square-shaped fort, hidden beneath a patch of paper. The symbol was drawn in invisible ink near the confluence of the Roanoke and Chowan rivers, exactly 50 miles west of Roanoke Island. That distance wasn't random. It corresponded with a cryptic note in White's journals. The colonists had intended to move 50 miles into the main. Why had White hidden this fort? Some believed he was protecting the colony's location from Spanish spies. Others wondered if he feared what he might find. The discovery electrified archaeologists. The North Carolina-based First Colony Foundation began investigating this location in Bertie County. They called it Site X. The dig at Site X began with skepticism. The terrain bore little resemblance to an English fort. But beneath centuries of sediment, fragments of English pottery emerged, distinctly dated to the late 1500s. These weren't ceremonial items. They were utilitarian: bowls, storage jars, cooking pots. And one detail stood out. There were no clay pipes. Jamestown settlers, founded in 1607, were famously fond of clay tobacco pipes. The Roanoke colonists predated that trend. This absence was a timestamp. The pottery didn't just suggest English presence, it hinted at habitation. Someone had lived here, cooked here, stored food. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a second location, to miles away. Site Y again, European ceramics suggesting cultural mixing. A scenario began to take shape, not a tale of a single lost colony, but of dispersal, a desperate attempt to integrate and endure. Some may have embedded themselves in local tribes like the Croatoan. Others ventured inland to build settlements under the cover of secrecy. Meanwhile, 200 miles southeast on Hatteras Island, once known as Croatoan, another excavation was unfolding. British archaeologist Mark Houghton unearthed unmistakable signs of English presence: a rusted rapier hilt, corroded gun parts, and a slate writing tablet still bearing faint scratches of English script. Even more compelling was the island's oral tradition, passed down among the Lumbee and other native communities. These stories claimed white settlers had joined with the native Croatoan people, forming families and adapting. Until now, those stories had been dismissed as myth. But the artifacts echoed those voices, lending credibility to what had been marginalized as folklore. What if both stories were true? What if the colony didn't collapse, but evolved? Scientists deployed high-tech detective work. Ground-penetrating radar detected subterranean anomalies. LiDAR stripped away vegetation to reveal ancient structures. These tools revealed post holes, fence lines, old hearths suggesting long-term settlement. Researchers compared artifacts from Sites X, Y, and Hatteras. Unlike Jamestown or Plymouth artifacts, none of the post-1600 markers appeared. Instead, materials were consistent with pre-1600 English presence, precisely when the Roanoke settlers would have disappeared. These weren't traces of later colonial movement. These were the Roanoke colonists themselves. Then came DNA analysis. Buried in the genetic code of local indigenous communities, scientists found markers consistent with Western European ancestry dating back centuries, aligned with the timeline of 1587. Then, in 2025, came the breakthrough. Near the Chowan River, just miles from Site X, the team found her. The burial was unmistakably Christian, skeleton supine, head west, feet east, the traditional orientation for Resurrection Day. No grave goods, just bones weathered by time, but intact. DNA analysis revealed she was of European descent and female. The 1585 all-male Roanoke expedition was ruled out. Jamestown settlers came years later and had no record of traveling this far inland. This woman had lived and died there, which meant others must have too. "This is terrifying," one archaeologist whispered. "Not just because we found her, but because now we know others were there too." The colonists hadn't vanished. They hadn't been killed in a single blow. They had moved. They had adapted. They had survived. The mounting evidence points to a split migration. Some made their way to Hatteras Island, finding an easy sanctuary among the Croatoan tribe. Traces of English tools, European pottery, and genetic hints in descendants all converge on this theory. This was not assimilation out of ambition. It was quiet surrender to necessity. Others ventured inland toward Metacom, deeper into wilderness, perhaps seeking autonomy or simply a place to vanish. Their decision wasn't guided by strategy. It was sheer survival. The colony had been ravaged by drought, disease, and starvation. Add the fear of attack from tribes or Spanish forces, and perhaps most fatal, internal fractures. Fear erodes unity faster than any enemy. When trust dissolved, so did the colony. They did what desperate people always do: they ran. Not as one, but in scattered threads. Some to the sea, some to the trees, and all disappeared. The lost colony is more than a mystery. It's a parable. For centuries, we treated it like a historical hiccup. But Roanoke is the American origin story most people have never truly heard, not because it lacks significance, but because the voices were silenced by time, by nature, by indifference. Within this silence lies a story of breathtaking depth, of fear, but also resilience, of people who risked everything and in their final days made impossible decisions with unimaginable consequences. This is about survival and the price of it, about how cultures collided, then blurred. How fragile memory is when no statues are raised, when no graves are marked, when the only monument is a word, Croatoan, carved in the bones of a dying settlement. What makes this terrifying isn't that we didn't know. It's that we almost didn't ask. Centuries passed while the bones of this mystery lay hidden. But in 2025, science whispered back. Genetic testing, ground-penetrating radar, linguistic reconstructions all converging to reveal what oral traditions had tried to preserve. They weren't lost, not really. We just stopped listening. What we nearly lost was more than a colony. It was our capacity to remember, to connect dots between vanished footprints and the people who made them. Because if the first Americans to vanish could be erased this easily, who else have we forgotten? That's the real terror, not that it happened, but that most people don't even know. If you're still watching, you're one of the few who sees the pattern. Subscribe, because what's coming next connects dots they never wanted you to see.